Vasudevaya. So we are reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 6. We are going to continue with the verses from text 30. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-Vikasa Swaminate Namine. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-Vedanta Swaminate Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So just to recollect what has happened so far, Lord Krishna begins this chapter with the discussion of what is meant by real sannyas and what is yoga. So Krishna explains that how by trying to be free from the material desires and acting, depending on Krishna and acting, that act is as good as sannyas. Sannyas, the idea of sannyas is to be free from material desires and renounce the family. So Krishna explains again, reminding at the beginning of this chapter that the sannyas and the yoga both are the same. Then Krishna begins to explain about the process of Ashtanga, the eightfold yoga system. He begins to explain the eightfold yoga system, and then Krishna points out, so maybe a person who is acting with detachment, is practicing, so is he eligible to take up the Ashtanga yoga? Yes, till his heart is completely purified, he may not be able to go to the higher steps, but he can take up the process. So as he is further purified, so more he is purified, then he becomes qualified to make progress in this eightfold yoga system. So that's why there are two levels Krishna is explaining. He is explaining about the yoga rurukshu and the yoga ruda. The yoga rurukshu stage, one may be practicing, one will be in the process of steadily going through the process of karma yoga as well, but he takes up this process, and then he with the yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, with all the steps, he is gradually withdrawing his senses from the sense objects and he is controlling with the sitting posture and all the details it is given. Then Krishna gives explanation of this yoga rurukshu stage. Then he points out that the yoga ruda stage. So and Krishna even further, before explaining about the symptoms of the yoga ruda stage or the perfection in yoga, he points out how the mind has to be controlled. Right from the beginning, he is pointing out how the mind has to be, when the mind acts as a friend, what is the consequence, and when the mind acts as an enemy, what is the consequence. So Krishna points out that the mind is the chief factor in the progress of yoga. So one has to control the mind. And then in 3 verses, Krishna explains, so what is the person who has controlled the mind? For one whose mind has become his friend, what will be his status? So Krishna explains in 3 verses, he is speaking about Jitatmana Prashantasya, he becomes completely peaceful. He is also speaking about he is very much absorbed in realization of the knowledge. Then Krishna also speaks about how he is dealing with others. So he is seeing the friend, the enemy, a neutral person, everyone. He is able to view everyone with equal vision. So after having explained this, Krishna now goes on to explain the process of the Ashtanga yoga. What are the steps involved in this Ashtanga yoga? Krishna goes on to explain that. Krishna speaks about the asana, how one has to sit, how one should have one pointed attention, how the surroundings should be taken care, and how one should sit erect. All those details Krishna explains, and after having explained those sitting postures and the focus of the mind, ekaki, single pointed attention. So Krishna speaks about the goal of the yoga. What by this yoga process, what is the goal to be achieved? The goal is that one will be able to attain nirvana. Nirvana paramam, Krishna says. Nirvana paramam means he becomes free from all the material desires, and he becomes qualified to mat samstam, niyate manasaha, with the regulation in this practice, steadiness in this yoga. Then he goes to this level of yoga rudha, and then he becomes fully qualified to be in touch with Paramatma, and then he becomes eligible to enter this spiritual abode. Srila Prabhupada points out that. Then further Krishna speaks about what other favorable actions one has to perform in the practice of this yoga. Krishna speaks about the regulations with respect to eating, regulations with respect to sleeping, regulation in work, regulation in recreation. Krishna speaks about that. Then also Krishna goes on to explain about further perfectional stages in the level of the yoga rudha. So one who has attained that perfection, what are all other symptoms you can see with that? So Krishna's immediately Krishna gives an example of a candle. A lamp. Not the candle. He speaks about a lamp in a windless place. So like that, the yogi will be so steady, he will be undisturbed. Then Krishna goes on to explain about the steadiness and the perfection one has attained with the practice of yoga. So this is an important verse wherein it shows how a devotee or a yogi is so much steady, he is completely undisturbed in a very unfavorable situation. In abominable condition also, he becomes totally fixed up in his connection with the Paramatma. So when Krishna discusses on this verse, Yam labdva chaparam labham manyate nadikam tataha yasmin stito dukkena gurunapi vichalyate. So Krishna speaks that such a devotee with his powerful realizations and is having disconnected himself from this external world, become very steady with his connection with the Paramatma, is undisturbed. So Prabhupada discusses about the sampragyata and asampragyata samadhi. So and then in the purport he discusses about that, and he explains that how by attaining perfection in the samadhi he is in total communion with Paramatma. After having discussed about the perfection in samadhi, Krishna goes on to explain how to attain. Again he points out how one can attain that samadhi. So one can attain that samadhi by being very determined in the path of this yoga. One has to be, so Krishna points out that one has to give up, voluntarily we should give up the material desires. Kamam styaktva, Krishna is pointing out. Krishna is also pointing out nishchayana. Nishchayana means with determination one has to control the mind and the senses from all directions. If you remember yesterday Prabhupada's translation, he is pointing out. And then he says that step by step, be patient, step by step, go ahead in this process. Then he also gives a formula or a sutra, how one has to engage this mind. You see again the discussion of the mind, Krishna brings back. Krishna gives us solution that when the mind wanders into different directions, what has to be done? What Krishna says? Bring it back. Yato nischalati manaschanchalam astiram. Tatastato niyamaitat. What does it verse go? Tatastato niyamaitat. Atma vashyam. Atman eva vasham nyayat. Yes. So the mind has to be brought under the control of the self. So by serving the Paramatma, or by being engaged in the Lord's service, the mind has to be again and again brought back. So this is a very good instruction even for the practitioners of devotional service, the Bhakti yogis also. Many instructions yesterday we discussed, the Bhakti yogis can also apply it in their lives. Then Krishna further explains about when a person who is so steady, there are two stages. Yesterday we discussed with the last two verses. Yesterday we concluded there are two stages Krishna is speaking about. One is speaking about the Brahma Bhuta stage. One attains the Brahma Bhuta level. So he realizes that he is not his body, his spirit, soul, and further he is establishing his connection with Paramatma. So he is also speaking about Brahma Samsparsha. Yesterday we discussed about Brahma Samsparsha, that one comes in touch with the Paramatma. He is completely fixed on in contact with Paramatma. Then when in that state, Krishna is pointing out that what is happening to such a devotee, he is able to see in everything the Supreme Lord, and also is able to see everyone in the Supreme Lord. So that is the conclusion with the verse we finish. And in that state also we can see he is completely purified, akalmasham, there is no more sinful reactions, he is not bound by sinful reactions, and he has shanta rajasam, he has become very peaceful, he has become freed from passion and ignorance. And it's also explained that he is almost a jivan mukta, very much in the same body he has attained perfection. So those are all the discussions we had yesterday. This is just to remind you that how this chapter is flowing, so that we can remember what is the goal of this chapter. The goal of the chapter is to come in communion with the Lord by the mechanical process of the Ashtanga Yoga, and also Krishna is pointing out that in that process what is the most important thing to be focused on is the control of the mind. So now we will continue with the text 30. यो मां पश्यति सर्वत्र सर्वं च मयि पश्यति तस्याहं न प्रणश्यामि स च मे न प्रणश्यति. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. So the same point what Krishna spoke, now Krishna is further emphasizing here that what is the realization one will get by seeing the Lord everywhere. So this is what happens. So he will never be lost because he is always absorbed in the Lord. He is everywhere, he is seeing the Supreme Lord. Now Srila Prabhupada goes on to explain that how whatever that we see in this world, everything is manifestation of Krishna. Everything is energy of Krishna, and so a person who knows about it, who is conscious of Krishna, that knowing everything is a manifestation of Krishna's energy, he actually sees properly. He is that person who can see properly. And also Prabhupada points out that there is nothing in this world can exist without Krishna. Krishna is the foundational principle, so everything is lying on Krishna. Okay, then Prabhupada goes on to explain that at this stage of Krishna consciousness, beyond self-realization, the devotee becomes one with Krishna in the sense that Krishna becomes everything for the devotee, and the devotee becomes full in loving Krishna. So it has to be understood properly. When we say that devotee becomes one with Krishna, as finally we got the message. That is a clear. Srila Prabhupada is immediately clarifying it, that ekatvam, also ekatvam anupashyataha, Shruti mantra, Ishopanishad also explains that one with Krishna means one with Krishna's desire, one with Krishna's will. What Krishna wants, the devotee understands, and he becomes one with the desire. So Srila Prabhupada goes on to explain in the purport, an intimate relationship between the Lord and the devotee then exists. In that stage, the living entity can never be annihilated, nor is the personality of Godhead ever out of the sight of the devotee. So in that situation, when he is so absorbed in Krishna, out of love, when he expresses his relationship to the Lord, then he cannot forget the Lord. He is always absorbed in the Lord. So now Prabhupada further clarifies in the purport that it should not be misunderstood that this being one with Krishna doesn't mean that one is merging with Krishna. This is spiritual annihilation, Srila Prabhupada points out. So Srila Prabhupada is clarifying that a devotee never does this. That's why of all the 5 kinds of muktis, devotee doesn't even want to hear one particular kind of mukti. He doesn't even want to hear the name, Sayujya. He doesn't want to merge with Krishna. So who are those who merge with Krishna? Asuras. Asuras merge with Krishna. Yes, that's the point. Okay. Now, Srila Prabhupada goes on to explain, now for someone to be in this situation of pure love, what is required? How one can attain this pure love? Only when one is in pure love, one will be able to see the Supreme Lord everywhere. And we can actually, when we think about it, even in material world also we can see when someone becomes very affectionate to another person, or someone becomes a very lovable object, he could all the time think, he will be sitting in one place, but his mind is somewhere on his about his beloved. Many of us have watched a lot of movies and films, and then you see the lover and is thinking about whom she's meditating on, or she's meditating on his boyfriend or whatever, wherever doing some other activity, wherever he is always absorbed, always thinking, because of it is just, of course, the material world is just lust, but the concept is there. So what is the idea? The idea is that unless someone has fully given himself to the object of worship, he has completely absorbed himself in his thoughts, then one can come to this stage. So to develop such a love, one has to, how one can develop such a love? We can buy one ointment. It is very difficult to get that particular ointment in the medical shop, or doctors also cannot prescribe. But Brahma, out of his great realization, he offers a prayer to the Supreme Lord. So who are those Shantas? Who are those great devotees who can always see the beautiful form of the Lord? So Srila Prabhupada immediately refers to that. Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena santas sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti yam shama sundaram achintya gunasvarupam govindam adi purusham tamahang bhajami. So the Lord, who is Shama Sundara, his form is compared to this dark cloud. Dark cloud is complexion, is like the dark cloud. The cloud becomes very dark, and just before it rains, if you have seen the cloud, it's called Ghanashyam. That word is also used. Ghanashyam means it's really so kind of dark, black, bluish, like that. It's a combination. Very difficult to even, you may compare some colors in the material world, but it's really Krishna's color. It is completely transcendental, spiritual. But we have some comparison. So Krishna is so attractive, and devotee, because of his heart, which is full of love for the Supreme Lord, and his eyes are anointed with premanjana. That's why this word is there. So because of that great love he has for the Lord, he is able to see the beautiful form of the Lord, and he is completely absorbed in him, and then he could see everywhere. Wherever he goes, he is able to see the Lord. So that is what Srila Prabhupada is pointing out here. And he says that when one has attained this stage with this pure love, at this stage, Lord Krishna never disappears from the sight of the devotee, nor does the devotee ever lose sight of the Lord. So now this is the point here Srila Prabhupada is making, that because of the great love that the Lord has for his devotee and the devotee has for the Lord, they become inseparable. Now Srila Prabhupada points out here, in the conclusion of the purport, such a yogi turns into a pure devotee and cannot bear to live for a moment without seeing the Lord within himself. Such a yogi means which kind of yogi? The yogi who sees the Lord as Paramatma within the heart. The same applies. So you are a devotee who sees the transcendental form of the Lord and engages in his service, and also the yogi who sees the Paramatma. Then for such a person, he cannot be without he cannot forget the Lord for any second. So now this is the main point here. Now we can also understand how the Lord also is so merciful, and he is so affectionate for when someone engages in his service, or when someone starts to meditate on him. If we just little bit peacefully think about it, actually why the Lord has to speak the Bhagavad Gita at all? What is the need for him to speak the Bhagavad Gita? One of the names for the Lord, he is called as Atma Rama. He is fully satisfied in himself. Apta Kama, this is another name that is given for the Lord. All his desires are just fulfilled like that. So why he has to speak the Bhagavad Gita? What is the need for him to speak the Bhagavad Gita? Yeah, we can say the Lord is very merciful. There are conditioned souls who have forgotten the relationship with the Lord. There is no need that one of us who are sitting here in this room, that the Lord is just waiting for us to offer him some bhog, and because that's what the scriptures explain. He is Atma Rama, he is Apta Kama. What are we going to do for him? All great devotees are there with him. So he is fully satisfied in himself. And yet the scriptures also explain that he is not fully satisfied. Now this is where it's very difficult to comprehend or understand what is the position of the Lord. How is that he is fully satisfied? Simultaneously he is not fully satisfied. So only the Lord can exhibit this quality. So it's called, this is the Achintya Guna. Achintya Guna Swarupam. This is the Lord. These contradictions perfectly fit in him. So that is the whole point. The Lord, out of mercy, out of great affection for the conditioned souls, he gives himself. That's why when we see in this particular in this shloka of the 5th chapter, the 29th verse, Krishna, there is a specific word that is used, Suhrit. So there are different definitions that is given about the Supreme Lord. And in the Sanskrit there are Mitra, what other words are there? Bandhu is a friend, Mitra is again a well-wisher. But Suhrit is heart-to-heart friend, This particular word is being used. Krishna is so kind that he is all the time with the jiva. Wherever the jiva is, in whichever body, he is all the time sitting next to him, watching him when this soul will turn towards me. Very patient. That's why also we can see that example is given that samana vriksho purusho nimagno, that in that tree there are two birds. One bird is happily enjoying the fruits of the tree. Another bird is sitting and then watching. So when will he turn the face towards me? Very patiently. So the Lord is so merciful, he is waiting. And when the jiva realizes the Lord's merciful nature and then he turns towards the Lord, then the Lord begins to reciprocate. And when he becomes further ready to sacrifice himself and give himself to the Lord and then being absorbed in the Lord never leaves such a devotee. So that is the whole lesson. So Yomam Pashyati Sarvatra Sarvam Cha Mai Pashyati. So the devotee always sees the Lord everywhere, and then the Lord also is in the heart of the devotee. So this is the whole thing. And when a devotee is absorbed in this direction, the Lord is never lost and is always with the Lord. So that is the conclusion of this verse. So we will see a couple of quotes from Prabhupada. So the true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. How in me? Because everything what you see, that is Krishna. You are sitting on this floor, so you are sitting on Krishna. You are sitting on this carpet, you are sitting on Krishna. You should know it. How this carpet is Krishna? Because carpet is made of Krishna's energy. So there are different kinds of Parashya Shakti Vividhaiva Shruyate. So this has to be understood. So we have a clear understanding. So when we say you are sitting on Krishna, that means you are sitting on Krishna's energy. So not that, everything is God. Sarvam Kala Vidham Brahman. But how do we understand? We also understand there are two things. One is Krishna and Krishna's energy. Although Krishna's energy is not different from Krishna, simultaneously it is different from Krishna also. This is the philosophy of the Achintya Veda Abheda Tattva. So that has to be understood. Otherwise, there will be a lot of confusion. The Prabhupada goes on to explain. So long we are in the material world, we are sitting on the material energy. Therefore, we are sitting in Krishna. Because energy is not separated from Krishna. Just like this light, this flame, there is heat and there is illumination, the two energies. The heat is not separated from the fire and the illumination is not separated from the fire. Therefore, in one sense, the heat is also fire. The illumination is also fire. Similarly, this material energy is also Krishna. So we are thinking that we are sitting on this floor, but actually we are sitting in Krishna. This is the philosophy. Whose energy? Krishna's energy. Therefore, the tree has got Krishna connection, and the tree as living entity is part and parcel of Krishna. So in that way, if you discuss philosophy, Krishna consciousness, don't see the tree, you see Krishna there, that is Krishna consciousness. You don't see tree, you see Krishna, that is Krishna consciousness. So you have to practice like that. That is yoga practice, that is samadhi. So here, when a person who is in trance is able to see the Supreme Lord everywhere. So we can immediately, again another symptom that we can see, when a devotee is very advanced, he could see the Supreme Lord everywhere. Okay, here is another one Srila Prabhupada is pointing out. Yes, the consciousness, this studying of the tree as Krishna's energy as part and parcel of Krishna. Why you take account of the tree so nicely? Because you have love for Krishna. Just like you love your child and your child is away from your side. You find the shoes of your child. Oh, this is the shoe of my child. Do you love that shoe? No, you love the child. Similarly, as soon as you see the energy of Krishna manifested in a different way, that means you love that entity because you love Krishna. Therefore, if you love Krishna, then your universal love is counted. Otherwise, it is nonsense. So this is an amazing point, because so much people speak about universal love. Love, ultimately everything is love. But what they do, they don't have clear conception of that love, and then they go on, they kill some animals, they discriminate based on the bodily concept. All kinds of discrimination is there. So remember the other day we had this discussion that the father of the church, he said that ultimately it is all love. So we have to love all the human beings. So Srila Prabhupada went on to say, why only the human beings? What about the animals? Immediately Prabhupada was pointing out. What about the cows? What about the sheep? And what about all the other living entities? So this is proper love. The love means understanding everyone to be part and parcel of Krishna. So then that is proper love. That is actually universal love. Not this love what they are promoting. I think Srila Prabhupada goes on to say about that. You cannot love, that is not possible. If you love Krishna, then the word love, universal love, so many things, as it is very much advertised. And if you don't love Krishna, then you will see, here is my American brother and the cow is my food. You see? Because you do not love the cow is American and my brother is American. My brother is good and the cow is food. What a nonsense, no? This is my universal love. Why? But a Krishna conscious person, he sees, oh, here is a cow, here is a dog, he is a part and parcel of Krishna. By some way or other, he has got a different body than me. That does not mean he is not my brother. So, how can I kill my brother? That is Krishna's love. Due to Krishna's love, so Krishna's love is so nice, all perfection. If there is no Krishna love, there is no question love. It is all nonsense. There cannot be any love without Krishna consciousness. Now, sometimes people challenge, how is it possible for the Supreme Lord to say God can be present in everyone's heart? They give a challenge, how it is possible? He is a person, so he should simply be in that particular abode. How is he can simultaneously be in all this process? It's not possible, you cannot understand by mundane logic. It is not possible to work out with mundane logic, because the very definition of God is beyond the perception of the senses and the mind. Yeah, so now we'll see what Srila Prabhupada gives an example here. The example, just like there is one sun in the sky, but if you keep on the earth millions of water pots, you will find in each water pot the reflection of the sun. Or another example, at noontime, you just inquire from your friend 10,000 miles away, where is the sun? He will say, on my head. So millions and trillions of people will see the sun on his head, but the sun is one. And another example, the water pot, the sun is one, but if there are millions of water pots, you will find in each pot the sun is reflected. Similarly, there may be innumerable living entities, there is no count. Jivasya asankhya. In the Vedic language, it is said that the living entities, there is no count, innumerable. So similarly, Vishnu, if a material thing like sun can be reflected in each and every pot, water pot, so why not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, live in each and everyone's heart? It is not difficult to understand. He is living. That is stated. And the yogi has to concentrate his mind on that Vishnu form. So this Vishnu form is plenary portion of Krishna. So that's what we understand. So the Lord expands himself into various forms, and he is, as Paramatma, resides in the heart of the devotee. Okay. Okay, text 31. So Krishna now speaks this verse that such a devotee, Omam Pashyati Sarvatra, who can see the Lord everywhere, he is very dear to me. So now he is pointing out. Sarva bhutastitam yoma bhajat yekattvamastitah sarvata vartamanopi sayogi mai vartate. Such a yogi who engages in the worshipful service of the Super Soul, knowing that I and Super Soul within all creatures are one, remains always in me in all circumstances. So here Krishna is pointing out that Sarva Bhuta Sthitam Yomam. So the Lord has pervaded himself in all the living entities. He is seated in the heart of all the living entities. Now the same Supreme Lord has expanded himself in the heart of all the living entities. So such a yogi, he knows that, and what he does, bhajat ekatvam. So he becomes bhajati, by engaging in the service of the Lord, in devotional service. His consciousness, he is in union with the Lord, he is by whatever is the desire of the Lord, the same is the desire of the Lord, is that of the devotee. The devotee also wants to fulfill the the desire of the Lord. So this is the understanding. So a devotee here, Srila Prabhupada points out that, so Krishna points out that bhajat ekatvam. So this is a very important word to be understood. We can see it consistently in the Bhagavad Gita as it is and other places. Prabhupada translates bhaj, it's a root word from which, no, he doesn't simply say it as devotion. He translates it as devotional service. So that's why bhajan also, what is that bhajan? When we sing bhajan means from the core of our consciousness, what are we are trying to offer it to the Lord. Whatever that we sing, whatever that we act, whatever that we do, we simply offer it to the Lord. So that is what it is, what the pujari is doing. Pujari is offering lamp, he is offering incense, he is offering everything to the Supreme Lord to please the Lord. So similarly, devotional service is all about offering our words, our mind, our intelligence, our asserts, whatever that is there in existence, everything we have to offer it to the Supreme Lord. And such a person who is offering like this to the Supreme Lord, he is a liberated soul in this body itself. So he is called as Jivan Mukta. Now, in this purport, Srila Prabhupada is pointing out that first of all, Vishnu is non-different from Krishna. He is expanding. Vishnustu trini rupani purushakyani ato viduhu. So, the Supreme Lord, he expands himself as the three Vishnus, and then he enters the planets, and then he holds the planet, and without him, nothing sustains. So, a devotee has got a clear understanding of this. Now, Srila Prabhupada is pointing out here, furthermore, there is no difference between the innumerable super souls present in the innumerable hearts of the living entities. Nor is there a difference between a Krishna conscious person always engaged in the transcendental service of Krishna and a perfect yogi engaged in meditation on the super soul. So, because both are same personality, Krishna, Vishnu, they are same personality. So, the meditation of the yogi and the devotee who is engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is no difference. The yogi in Krishna consciousness, even though he may be engaged in various activities while in material existence, remains always situated in Krishna. So that's the whole point now, that a devotee is engaged. What is the difference between the yogi and the devotee? The devotee is consciously engaged in the service of the Lord, whereas yogi, he may be sitting and he is also engaged in service, but his service is he is establishing his connection with the Lord, and he may feel great happiness by seeing the Lord, by having that vision of the Lord, and he is satisfied in that, and he becomes peaceful, he becomes prashanta. But a devotee goes a step ahead, and what he does, he renders service to the Lord. So these are the higher stages of spiritual realization. And now Srila Prabhupada is pointing out how such a devotee who has established his connection with Paramatma, he is actually liberated in the very body itself. That is the point Srila Prabhupada here is referring to. Nikilas apyavastasu jivan muktasa uchyate. A devotee of the Lord, always acting in Krishna consciousness, is automatically liberated. In the Narada Pancharatra, this is confirmed in this way. Dik kalad anavachinne Krishne cheto vidayacha tanmayo bhavati shipram jivo brahmani yojaye. By concentrating one's attention on the transcendental form of Krishna, who is all pervading and beyond time and space, one becomes absorbed in thinking of Krishna and then attains the happy state of transcendental association with him. So now this is the point so a devotee does not separately endeavor for liberation or anything. He is just by his transcendental engagement in the Lord's service, he is already liberated. He becomes fixed in his Swarupa, and that's why he is already a liberated soul. So the moment we come in touch with the Supreme Lord and engage in his service, we transgress the effect of the three modes of nature. So then he becomes liberated. So further, Srila Prabhupada goes on to explain that the yogi becomes faultless. How he becomes faultless? Because of his having attained the state of samadhi. Samadhi means complete absorption in Krishna. Although the Lord is one, He is present in innumerable hearts as many. Ekopi san bahuda yo vabhati. So from the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, Prabhupada is giving a reference. And again, Prabhupada is giving further reference from the Puranas to establish how the Lord has pervaded everywhere. Eka eva paro Vishnu sarva vyapi na sankshayah aishwaryad rupam ekam cha suryavat bahudeyate. Vishnu is one, yet he is certainly all pervading by his inconceivable potency. In spite of his one form, he is present everywhere as the sun appears in many places at once. So that's why Srila Prabhupada also in the lecture is discussing about the sun, how the sun is, although it is one place, but wherever you go, you feel like it is on top of you. So, and that's one example Prabhupada is giving. It is from this Purana. And so this is the whole point, So a devotee, that's why he is able to see the Lord everywhere. And also he could see in any object, he could see the Supreme Lord. It's a very advanced stage to see the Supreme Lord everywhere. Whereas we are in a very conditioned state, very difficult for us to perceive. Even when we come to temple, our mind standing in front of the deity goes somewhere else. This is our conditioned state. But we can see on the other hand, the Uttama Adhikari or the topmost devotee, he could see the presence of the Lord everywhere. That's why the similar definition is given in the scripture. Sarva bhuteshu yap pashyed bhagavad bhavam atmanah. The Nava Yogendras are giving instruction about, giving definition of who is the Uttama Adhikari. Same point of Yomam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mai pashyati. So they are in that advanced state that they could see the Supreme Lord everywhere. Bhutani bhagavat atman yesha bhagavat uttamaha. So this is a definition usually that is given. And also we can see in the nectar of instruction and the nectar of devotion, when there is a definition of Uttama Adhikari, this verse is often discussed from the Bhagavatam. So because he is able to see the soul of all souls everywhere. Who is the soul of all souls? Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's how it is defined here. Sarva Bhuteshu, the soul of all souls, Yapashir. He could see the Supreme Personality of Godhead everywhere. And also anything that he sees, he could relate it with the Supreme Lord. Immediately he could see the connection with the Supreme Lord. And he could also see that everything exists in the Supreme Lord. So this is the definition of an advanced devotee. And we could see here that the yogi, he could see the presence of the super soul. So the Supreme Lord has expanded himself as a super soul, and he is seated in everyone's heart. So that is the understanding. So we can see the Lord being within an atom. He is inside the atom also. He is inside the heart of a living entity. And so he is the main sustaining principle. Now sometimes people could question why at all there is anything in this world. I remember one time I had a discussion with one of my friends. He told me that when he was a small boy, he was asking his mother, why at all anything is existing in this world. Actually the mother, he became very philosophical, but his philosophical inquiry was more towards Buddhism. He said that actually why me and you, we are existing? There should be nothing. Everything should be, what about a state of nothingness? So mother was giving him, he was probably 8 years old or something, a little grown up, but still the mother was giving him food, and then mother didn't know, she wanted to change the topic and talk something else. So he said that after he came in touch with our Hare Krishna movement, he got Prabhupada's books, then he understood what is this nothingness he was speaking about. So here, when we just ask a question, why at all there is anything in this world? What is our answer for this? Why at all anything is existing in this world? What do you say when someone asks you like this? Why what all anything should exist? What is our answer for this? Yes, that is the whole point. Everything in this world is existing for the Lord's pleasure. You, myself, whatever that you see, Krishna expands himself into everything for his own pleasure. This is what the scripture says. So that is why we forget the whole main point, right? Everything is existing for the pleasure of Krishna, but we are looking for our own pleasure. So that's where there is problem that has begun. That's why we came to the material world. If we can see, if we are trained to see everything for the pleasure of the Lord, then we are in a very safe position. So that is the whole thing. That's why for an advanced devotee, there is nothing inauspicious for him in this world. Everything is auspicious. There is nothing bad or reversals for him. So when a devotee is in this consciousness of seeing the Lord everywhere and being absorbed in the Lord, he is absolutely undisturbed. So all those stages that we read yesterday, that yam labdva chaparam labam, he is undisturbed. How it is possible? Because he has attained the great stage of trance. He has attained the stage of being completely in communion with the Lord. And we could see Prabhupada many times gives the example of Jesus Christ, how he was, he gives example of Lord Nityananda. He also gives example of Haridas Thakur. Ramacharya Haridas Thakur was beaten in 22 marketplaces, but he was undisturbed. He never complained. He, in fact, the Lord, if you see in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a Leela that the Lord is relating with every devotee. He is speaking about the great qualities of each devotee, and then he is explaining how he is related with all the devotees. When it comes to Namacharya Haridas Thakur, the Lord said that, my dear Haridas, remember we were beaten in 22 marketplaces. I was ready with Sudarshan Chakra. I couldn't tolerate that. But you pleaded, you are requested, they are all out of ignorance doing something, my dear Lord. You are offering praise like this, then what can I do? I couldn't do anything. I had to hold myself. And then immediately after that, explaining all these things, the Lord showed, so what more I can do? I cannot bear my devotee suffering. So I took all the beatings on my back. So the Lord showed his back and he could see all those whip marks are there. And when Namacharya Haridas Thakur saw that, he fainted on the spot. So what is the point? The devotee, a pure devotee who is always thinking of Krishna, who is always thinking of how to expand his Krishna consciousness, is completely protected by the Supreme Lord. There is no doubt about that. Say, a great example, right? So we are speaking about great personalities from Bhagavatam, and what is there anyone in the recent history, our own Srila Prabhupada, who could travel on this Jaladuta? Traveling on a Jaladuta is not some fun time. You may say, let's go for a tour picnic. Nobody wants to stay for 5-6 hours in this travel over the ocean. So that is the whole point. The captain of the ship was totally surprised, couldn't understand how is the Atlantic Ocean is supposed to be even more ferocious. The winds and the waves, but everything, Krishna's protection. Otherwise, we heard just a few days back, Srila Prabhupada had a stroke. We have no clue what is a stroke. Very not so easy to recover from that. Prabhupada just tolerated everything, and Krishna personally guided him. So that is the whole point. That why we are discussing this? Because the devotee is undisturbed in his mission in Krishna consciousness. So we could see in the life of Namacharya Haridas Thakur and other great personalities also. So we can see the more we understand that the Lord is personally present in the heart of a devotee, and the more a devotee is advanced, he is there to protect him. The Lord comes forward, is very merciful. Then we will be able to make steady progress in the life. So that's why if our attitude is whatever that happens to us in our life, it is the Lord's plan, and if we can develop this attitude of understanding it as Krishna's plan, that is, Krishna has got a plan, so something is happening to us in our life. Not that we don't do anything and sit idle. No, we act, we act, and then we take necessary steps. But we have to have this attitude of understanding it, whatever that happens to us, as that the Lord has got a plan. As Srila Prabhupada often quotes this verse of Tattenu Kampam Susamikshamano, that the Lord has got a plan, and things are happening according to His plan. That there may be some reversals that could happen to us in our life, that the Lord is not to be blamed. It's my own karma that I have done whatever that I have done in the past. I am reaping these results. In fact, I should struggle and suffer more, but because of my merciful Lord, the suffering is this much. And I will tolerate, I will continue to engage in the Lord's service and hoping for the Lord's mercy. And Brahma says, when a person has got such an attitude, he becomes eligible to enter the abode of the Lord. It is his birthright. In fact, he says it is his birthright. In regard to this, there is a simple story which conveys the point that how if we can accept everything as plan of the Lord, that is always good for us. And that's why we are in Krishna consciousness. We need to be trained to come out of our own plan, and gradually, by the process of Krishna consciousness, by engaging in devotional service, we slowly try to see the plan of the Lord. So there was once, I think, it was Akbar, he just went for some hunting with some ministers and others. He went there, and while he was doing that, actually the arrow was very sharp. Once he just cut his fingers and a little bit on the hand, there was quite some cut, and it was very it was very painful, and he was literally struggling. And others were, there are some people immediately they say, oh my God, what a wound, what a struggle, oh it's really should be painful. Some of them were sympathizing with Akbar. And Birbal was there, so he said that, he just saw the whole situation and said that whatever God does, it is best. So he said this, and then Akbar couldn't take it at that particular situation. He was a little upset with that. He said, what is this? Why he is commenting like this? I'm struggling, what kind of pain that I'm undergoing. He is just passing comment like this. And so they came back to the kingdom, and then next day, still Akbar was contemplating on that. Why he spoke like this? This is not good to pass a comment on me like this. So there were other ministers. So immediately, some of the other ministers were trying to, there was an opportunity. They had some envy on Birbal. So they were saying, that's not the proper way to speak. How can you? There's no feeling of compassion. And like that, they just went on talking. And so they came to a decision that let's now send him out of our ministry. Enough of this Birbal being here. So they sent a letter to him, and they said that, okay, enough of your service in this kingdom. You please withdraw your service, and then you can stay back in your house. So they sent the letter, and then Birbal replied for the letter that whatever God does is best. That's the reply he sent again back to Akbar. So then Akbar was wondering what is going on, why it's like this. So like this happened, and then after that again Akbar after some time he again went for another hunting spree. So this time, even before going for that, then the ministry, that the ruling was going on. Akbar became little fried because he gradually felt how Birbal was very effective in dealing in many situations. He was almost like a Brahmana. He was very expert in handling many things. But those other ministers couldn't handle, and he was always feeling so much pressure. So at the same time, he didn't want to go back again and call Birbal because he has his pride, he has his position. So he was thinking like that, and he actually wanted to be away from the kingdom for some time. So he went on a ride on the horse. He just went ahead again going something towards the direction of the forest. So while he was going like that, suddenly, he just got down and he was walking nearby the forest, and there were some kind of tribe people. They just came and then they just captured Akbar. So they were very powerful, even more tall, had heavy, arms and shoulders, and they were very fearful also. So they came and then attacked him. They just took Akbar, and then they took him very much into some interior village. And hardly they brought him to a temple, most probably something like a Durga temple. They brought him, and then there was the Bali Peetam. They had this big Bali Peetam, and then there were so many different people who were there, and then they put him on that wooden plank is there, and then Akbar was almost about to be killed now. So he was about chanting some mantras, weird mantras, and then the priest came, and then he was inspecting Akbar, and then just before almost they were about to cut him, and then they saw at the last minute that there were scars on his hand, and then he said, he is not the right person for the Bali, because the persons should be very pure, like that they had the conception. So they sent him off. They immediately put him back on the horse. They sent him back to the kingdom, and he came back. Somehow or other he found the route, and then he came back to the kingdom. And then all the time he realized that, okay, whatever God does is best. This is what was lingering in his mind. So he thought that, okay, now I should just go back, and then somehow or other go and then tell this, whatever that has happened, I go and tell to Birbal, and then tell him that you please come back, I cannot be without you. So Akbar went to Birbal and narrated the entire story, that now I realize what you said, whatever God does is best. If not for this scare, I would have been finished. So then Akbar was trying to understand from Birbal, what is it that is going on with you? How is that when I sent you off, you again replied to me, whatever God does is best. How to understand that? So then Birbal said that, you see, if I had been with you in that situation, now I would have definitely come with you to this forest, and instead of killing you, they would have killed me. So I said, I know about this, so I said, whatever God does is best. So anyway, the point is, it was so story made little funny, but there is a point to be taken that we never know what is the plan of the Lord. We may be wondering, why this is happening to me like this, why it has happened, why, if God is there, how it could have happened? But sir, we are very, very tiny, insignificant jiva. What is it that we do not know how our whole body is functioning? We do not know about this planet. We do not know about how vast is this one universe. There are millions and millions of universes, millions and millions of jivas, and Lord has a perfect plan for every jiva. He knows how to deal with everyone. Simply we have to acknowledge that Lord is the supreme enjoyer, and He knows, He is always our well-wisher. If we can acknowledge this, and if we can try to follow His instructions, our life will be perfect. So this is the message to be understood. And these great devotees, they can understand that whatever the Lord does is for our good. That's why Srila Prabhupada many times he says, don't always be in this world of bones and stones. If you see, you could have seen some letter or some articles. Prabhupada says, we are hanging on to bones and stones. You could see in the Vedabase. And Prabhupada says, hang on, that means what? They are only interested in two things. Body, all the time, meditating how to enjoy this body. And stones means what? Nice house, other facilities, how to be stable in this material world. The prayer that we offer to the Lord is also like this. So my dear Lord, let me forget you, let me enjoy in this world. So you please give me all facilities. So that should not be the consciousness. So that's why Srila Prabhupada says that give up the idea of bones and stones and prepare yourself to go back home, back to Godhead. So that should be our motto. And also in one lecture, I think Srila Prabhupada says that you want to dance separately from Krishna here. In this world you want to suffer and struggling. Krishna is saying, come and dance with me. Krishna is giving an open invitation. So we should be inspired. So that's why the religion should not be mundane. Real religion is that religion by which we can give our heart to Krishna. So that's what these two verses are emphasizing us. We have to give our heart to Krishna. By giving our heart to Krishna, Krishna is very pleased. Okay, let's continue with text 32. Now this is again a very important verse which explains about how, again we saw this topic in the previous chapter, Sarva Bhuta Hite Rataha. Krishna says that such a great devotee is always interested in the welfare of other living beings. Now here Krishna goes on to he points out, text 32, Atmaupamyena sarvatra samang pashyati yorjuna Sukam va yadi va dukkam sayogi paramo mataha. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress. O Arjuna. So this is the whole point, that you see that here we can see a difference between a Krishna conscious devotee and a yogi who is practicing this, who has attained the samadhi. There is a gulf of difference between these two personalities. So Krishna says, Atma pamyena sarvatra samam pashyati yorjuna. So sarvatra samam. So two things we can see. The devotee, he is very much concerned for the welfare of other living beings. So that's why a devotee is called as paradukka dukki. He is always concerned for the welfare of others. So that means what? He is able to see that the conditioned souls are part and parcel of Krishna. Now in the forgetful state, the conditioned souls are struggling in this material world. So he becomes very compassionate. And what is the other qualities mentioned here? Sukam va yadiva dukkam sayogi paramo mataha. So this is the greatness of it. He sees their happiness or distress. He takes it as himself. So this is not an ordinary quality at all. This is a great quality of a great personality. When someone is struggling, he goes into their shoes and he can understand what is the great struggle they are undergoing, and he wants to come up with a solution. He wants to help them. Simply we can take the greatness of Srila Prabhupada. It's not an ordinary task at the age of 80 years to take strains to go out of the country and then start a worldwide Krishna consciousness movement and bring people who are struggling in this material world, who have forgotten Krishna and rotting in this material world. Srila Prabhupada gave the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the powerful powers of Krishna Katha, the Krishna Prasadam, and saved the lives of so many people. Exactly. Atma pamyena sarvatra samang pashyati yorjuna. So how it is possible? It is possible because this is actually a Vaishnava. Vaishnava is full of compassion. So compassion has to be understood properly. Compassion not for the body, but for the soul, being part and parcel of Krishna. What is Krishna's mission? Krishna himself comes down time to time to recover the conditioned souls who have forgotten their relationship with the Supreme Lord. So the Supreme Lord, the pure devotee, he understands the mood of the Lord and he gives himself to his devotee. So Srila Prabhupada, in this purport, he goes on to point out that how a Krishna conscious person is a perfect yogi. One who is Krishna conscious is a perfect yogi, is aware of everyone's happiness and distress by dint of his own personal experience. See, this is another point to be considered. No, a devotee, he knows, maybe he himself has seen in the past how we were struggling, how we were completely in Maya. We wasted so many years not serving Krishna. So now, by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and the Parampara, he got in touch with this transcendental knowledge, this transcendental process of Krishna consciousness. So now he feels that, oh, let me share this knowledge with others. Let me help other conditioned souls. That's why the most important part of our mission. So when we hear purity is the force, utility is the principle, books are the basis, preaching is the essence. We should never forget it. Why we are sitting in this International Society for Krishna Consciousness? Everything is meant for this single purpose. We are meant to preach. So if we do not take up this opportunity of preaching Krishna consciousness, as Srila Prabhupada writes in one of the Chaitanya Charitamrita purport, we will just stay in the ashram, eat and sleep and become lazy and dull. That's all. This is what will happen. Very nicely you will eat and we will become very comfortable. We will fight for the rooms, we will fight for the position, and our life will become complete, it will be a disaster. So we have to understand the mission of the Lord, what the Lord is expecting from us and what the acharyas are expecting from us, and when we take up risks for pleasing the Lord, that is when we preach and please the Lord, the acharyas are pleased, the Lord is pleased, and we are protected and we are purified. We are thoroughly purified. Not that for preaching we have to become a Mahabhagavata devotee, not that we have to become a guru. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Jare deko tare kaho Krishna upadesh, Amara agya guru hai taro desh. You just become a guru. Whatever you know about Krishna, just tell about Krishna to others. So this is the point. Wherever we are, whatever situation, I am a woman, I am a brahmachari, I am a sannyasi, I am a vanaprastha, I am a whatever may be our situation. Wherever we are, simply we have to tell about Krishna. Srila Prabhupada, once he was in Vrindavan, there was a devotee by name Aprameya Prabhu. He was a cook. Okay, he didn't know much of philosophy and like that. So Srila Prabhupada once called him and then he said that you should preach. You should tell to everyone about Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada personally showed him how to do that. He said, you see, in the Vrindavan temple, you see people are coming, so many people are coming for darshan. So Prabhupada called him and then said that when they come, you invite them, ask them to take darshan of the deities. Then you tell them about ISKCON, you tell them about Hare Krishna Mahamantra, ask them to chant Krishna's name, and then like this you will become preachers. So like the Prabhupada was encouraging that everyone, whatever may be their situation, we have to speak about Krishna. That is the real compassion. Telling people about Krishna and then reminding them of their eternal relationship with Krishna. So that is what is the great edge that we see here with a Krishna conscious devotee and other yogis. So that's why Prabhupada is calling a Krishna conscious devotee to be a perfect yogi. One who is Krishna conscious is a perfect yogi. He is aware of everyone's happiness and distress by dint of his own personal experience. The cause of the distress of a living entity is forgetfulness of his relationship with God. So Prabhupada explains why the conditioned souls are suffering in this material world and how a devotee becomes very dear to Krishna. Why? This is the reason. That's Tasman Manusheshu Kaschin me Priyakrittamaha. In other words, the devotee of the Lord always looks to the welfare of all living entities, and in this way he is factually the friend of everyone. So because he knows that the people are suffering in this material world because of forgetfulness of Krishna, so let us preach, let us give his message, and by that he becomes very dear to Krishna. And another quality here it is being pointed out, that he is never envious nor selfish, always thinking about the welfare of the conditioned souls. And we can see the more the devotees advance, we can see we could see his heart, So we can see when devotee is very advanced, he knows so many higher topics in Krishna consciousness, and he can discuss deep subject matters. But all the time keeping in mind what is actually required for the people to hear, what is actually they should, what is the real message they should hear. He gives that message. That's why Srila Prabhupada sometimes they say, what is this again? Let us go to someone else for some higher topics. Srila Prabhupada is, if you see his conversations, lectures, in his books, how many times he might have very patiently explained that we are not this body, we are spirit, soul. How many discussions he would have had. Why? Because that people do not know his basic subject matter. So very much that needs to be emphasized. And Srila Prabhupada is a Maha-Bhagavata, Paramahamsa devotee, but he was so patient, with great enthusiasm. And when Srila Prabhupada spoke, he spoke with such an enthusiasm, it was very lively, and he was helping people from conditioned state to raise themselves to Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada concludes the purport. The yogi who has withdrawn to a secluded place in order to meditate perfectly may not be as perfect as a devotee who is trying his best to turn every man toward Krishna consciousness. So this is the point, no? A yogi, what he does, he may go to a secluded place, sit in some cave, and then he may be absorbed. A honest, sincere yogi, he may be in communion with Paramatma. But what the devotee does, he is right there in the city of Bangalore, Delhi, or in polluted city. Is there. He is taking strains to go out, distribute the books of Srila Prabhupada. He is distributing, giving this knowledge to people, reminding them of their constitutional position as eternal servant of Krishna, and in that way saving the devotee. So what is that? So a devotee is not selfish, he is not envious. He really wants to save people from conditioned life. That's why you can see we can say that both the kind of people are rascals. Who are those? One are those are those karmis who outright sometimes they reject the supremacy of the Lord. So they are one kind of rascals. And the other kind of rascaldom is that there are other people who are so-called big scientists. They study, they analyze so many things, and outright they also reject God and His instructions. And then the so-called sadhus, they go to some caves and do some meditation, and after the meditation, in the process of meditation, their realization is that you are God, I am God, we are all God. Is another rascaldom. So all these people, they outright reject the Lord and His instructions. So, and that's the most unfortunate thing. That's why a devotee also is very careful, and also he points out who are these false yogis. He points out that, okay, so-called Babas, so-called yogis, so-called mothers who are roaming around claiming themselves to be the real practitioners of the yoga system, and then they are the real spiritualists. So devotee takes train to give this message to the people so that they could understand properly and they could come to their constitutional position. And in fact, he is very strong. In fact, he is saying that he doesn't even encourage worship of the demigods. Why? Because he knows, because demigods are also not true devotees. They are also Sakama Bhaktas. Sakama Bhaktas means they also have material desires. So best is to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engage in His service. So this is the nature of the pure devotee. And also we can see another quality. Prabhupada often used to quote this verse and remind. Actually, Prabhupada himself was in that mood of Prahlad Maharaj, who was trying to say, when Lord Nrsimhadev was asking him to what benediction he wants, he said that I am not interested in any benediction, my dear Lord. As far as I am concerned, I am fully happy. Although I am in this material world, I am fully absorbed in you. Naivod vijay paradharatyaya vaitaranyas. Tvad virya ghayana mahamrita magna chittaha. Virya, I am just so much absorbed in your glories, your great, in your name, form, nama, rupa, guna, lila, ityadi. I am so much absorbed in that. As far as I am concerned, I don't have any problem. My chitta, my heart is with you. But what is it that I am so much worried? Shoche tato. I am really lamenting for whom those souls, vimukha chetasa, indriyartha. So they are simply engaged in sense gratification. I am just worried about them. So, and what is it that they are unnecessarily carrying this huge load of this material enjoyment on their head. So Prabhupada says, Maya Sukaya Bharam Budvato Vimudam. So what is that they are doing? They have just taken so much burden on their head, and they think that, I have so many things to do, I have to accomplish many things. I am concerned for that. I want to save them. So this is the attitude of a pure devotee. So similarly, Srila Prabhupada, he gave this mercy to everyone, and he wanted to save people from this conditioning. So this is the whole point. to be understood that a devotee is so absorbed and he wants to save the lives of the people, save the lives of the people, and that is the Atma-pamyena stage that here Krishna is pointing out. So such a devotee becomes very dear to Krishna because he wants to save the lives of the people. Okay, now let's go to text 33. Arjuna uvacha yoyam yogastvaya prokta samyena madhusudana etasyaham na pashyami chanchalatvat stiting stiram. Arjuna said, "O Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady." Now, Arjuna is pointing out to Krishna here that, my dear Lord, this kind of an attitude of Atma-pamyena, whether one is my friend or whether, okay, with friends maybe I can become very friendly, but someone is an enemy, to always be in such an attitude, thinking himself to be a part and parcel, and also taking up all these processes of whatever processes that you have mentioned before, Suchau Deshe, being pure and trying to be sitting straight and always with one pointed attention. This process seems to be quite difficult for me. It is not possible, and he is expressing his inability that he will not be able to take up this eightfold yoga system. This is a very nice purport by Srila Prabhupada, wherein he is doing a very good analysis of what are all the reasons Arjuna is giving not to take up this eightfold yoga system. So let's quickly run through this purport. The system of mysticism described by Lord Krishna to Arjuna, beginning with the words Shuchau Deshe and ending with Yogi Paramaha, is here being rejected by Arjuna out of a feeling of inability. It is not possible for an ordinary man to leave home and go to a secluded place in the mountains or jungles to practice yoga in this age of Kali. Yeah, it is very difficult. Forget about even going to the mountains, even to go in a dark, when it is very dark, it is very difficult for us to go. Who knows, we may step on a snake, we may step on scorpion. It's very difficult. The present age is characterized by a bitter struggle for a life of short duration. Another reason you can see here, that lifespan is very short. People are not serious about self-realization even by simple practical means, and what to speak of this difficult yoga system. Now tell me, many of the devotees who are sitting here, we have gone out to distribute books. How many of the common people, when we go, they give us, they put carpet, and then they put garland, and then they give, oh please come in, and then they give a plate with varieties of sweets, and then, oh you are the sadhu, the savior has come, please sit, oh, and then call everyone, let us hear from him. Who is first thing they say, I'm just thinking of some words in Tamil. They say that Sami Andirche, they say, okay, so they close the door, or they say, why, early morning, or they just bang the door. Nobody is interested. Nobody is interested. Or early morning, even we will not be able to go there at all. Full packed volume, some crazy song will be going on. We have our neighbor here, very mercifully, their tenants have not come. So he is calling with different film music, right, through 24 hours, 24/7, some songs are going on. So like the people are so much interested in all mundane music, film, and all other nonsense. Nobody is interested. And now you offer them about spiritual life. Nobody is interested. This word spiritual is not in the dictionary at all. Oh, what you are saying spiritual? I couldn't find this in the dictionary. That word is, they got dictionary from China. In China, just for information, for those who do not know, there is God. This word is not there in the dictionary. They don't have a meaning for it. So it is like this. So Prabhupada is pointing out, people are not serious about self-realization, even by simple practical means, and what to speak of this difficult yoga system, which regulates the mode of living, the manner of sitting, selection of place, and detachment of the mind from material engagement. First of all, where we will go to find such a place? Yesterday we discussed. Even if you go to some that places like Haridwar, the banks of Ganges, wherever there is human intervention, you will find all kinds of plastics, fruity boxes, whatnot. Everything right from thermocol to whatever that is latest produced, you will find it there. Very difficult. People are trying to control pollution, and it's highly impossible. Everything is polluted place. So Prabhupada is pointing out about the place. And then another thing here Srila Prabhupada is pointing out, as a practical man, Arjuna thought it was impossible to follow this system of yoga, even though he was favorably endowed in many ways. What are those how Arjuna is favorably endowed? You know how much Arjuna was tall? Arjuna, Bhima, they were all almost 10 feet, I think. They were very tall, very powerful. Arjuna is called Mahabaho. His shoulders, he's famous for his powerful shoulders and very well built. And we all know about his concentration when he was with Dronacharya, all the students were there, but Arjuna was exceptional. Everybody could see so many different parts of the tree. They could even see the bird. Arjuna could not see anything. All he could see is only the eyes of the bird. So that's why Dronacharya was so pleased. This is the real student. You want to master archery, that should be your concentration. So focused. And Arjuna was, so here that's the point. He's so qualified. And Arjuna is now rejecting, he's saying it's not possible. So Prabhupada goes on to point out, he says that he was a great warrior, he had great longevity, so also lifespan was much more. And above all, he was most intimate friend of Lord Krishna. What more you want? And also you can see in many dealings in the Mahabharata, you can see how Arjuna was so capable, how he dealt with Urushi, how when he was acting as Brihadnala, how he was dealing in the situation. He is so composed, cool and composed, but Arjuna of such a caliber. And also he was a very powerful fighter. We could see in many places he fought with Lord Shiva also. He got the Pashupata Astra. He fought with Niveta Kavachas. Not easy to defeat them. Such a powerful warrior, he is outright rejecting this system of eightfold yoga system. So this is something for us to think. Better to chant Hare Krishna. Don't complain anymore. There cannot be even more easy process. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given such an easy process, and he says that very difficult to lift those beads, becomes very heavy. So we have to really, there cannot be any other easy process than this. 5,000 years ago, Arjuna had much better facilities than we do now. Yet he refused to accept the system of yoga. And now, another point Srila Prabhupada is here pointing out, in fact, we do not find any record in history of his practicing it at any time. Therefore, this system must be considered generally impossible in the age of Kali. Of course, it may be possible for some very few rare men, but for the people in general, it is an impossible proposal. If this were so 5,000 years ago, then what of the present day? So that is the whole point. Actually, there are many people who are proposing all this, you have to do like this, do like that. They themselves are not following anything so strictly. So it is a very tough process. So Prabhupada again, he concludes the purport with a point. Those who are imitating this yoga system in different so-called schools and societies, although complacent, are certainly wasting their time. They are completely in ignorance of the desired goal. So this is the point. So they are just simply wasting their time and not understanding the defects in the system. Okay. Now let's go to text. I'd like to read few points from the commentary of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He gives some more reasons. See, this is the point he is making. Saying that it could be difficult to attain such equal vision, Arjuna speaks, I do not see the permanence of this yoga which has achieved equal vision. This yoga will not last forever. This state will last for 3 or 4 days. So it's very difficult to be in that equal vision. Because the mind is unsteady, chanchalatva. You spoke of seeing the happiness and distress of all living entities of the world as one's own happiness and distress. Who can be in that steady? Please leave me alone. Every time we say, no, I myself having thousands of problems, I can't deal with you. Get out from here. Sometimes we get angry. We tell with our own relatives also, or very near and dear ones, leave me alone. This is what I heard from one of my students when he had some difficulties. I was trying to help him. Leave me alone, get lost. He told me like that. Well, this is when somebody is in heavy distress and great difficulty, this is what happens. So one can maintain such equal vision for friends and neutral persons, but it is not possible to maintain equal vision for enemies who wish to cause you harm. So this is another point he's saying. That okay, with friends at least I can have some equal vision. With the enemies, how can I deal? Not possible, Krishna. For those who hate you or criticize you, it is not possible for me to see as equal at all times the happiness and distress of Yudhishthira and Duryodhana. Nice point, no? He says that how can I? No, it's not possible. I can't deal with Duryodhana like that. So now we can also see, sometimes this is what we suggest for the many devotees. Oh, I can't deal with this person, very difficult, so be away from him. This is what we say. Everyone said, go and mingle with him. Because in our state, in our situation, this is what we can do. So Arjuna is expressing a situation like that. Even if by intelligence you see equally the Jiva, Paramatma, Prana, senses and body elements of oneself, one's enemies, that lasts only for 2-3 days. Because the fickle mind is stronger than the discriminating intellect. One sees that the mind attached to material enjoyment overcomes the intellect. So now this is what here Arjuna is pointing out. Okay, even if I with all great endeavor try to have this vision of equanimity, maximum maybe 3 days, that's it. I cannot go more than that. So this is the prelude, I would say, for the next verse, where then Arjuna expresses that Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramadi balabhadridam. He says that very difficult. My mind is, because the mind is fickle nature. Okay, one quote we will read. In Bengali, there is a proverb, there is a very nice comparison like this, that Bhara Bhara Gonai Gela Rashatal Beta Gora Bale Kotajal. That means the animals, they can swim over the river. So there was a big overflowing river. So at that time, there was no such carrying boats and ships. So everyone had to cross the river, either by small boats or by swimming. So generally, the animals were allowed to swim over, to cross over the other bank, and men. They took small boats and they would. Now there was very good current. So many horses, they were swept away by the current. And one lean and thin horse came. He is asking, let me know how much water this is. You see? So similarly, if what was impossible for Arjuna, such a stalwart, such an advanced, and I mean to say in every respect, directly a friend of Krishna, he is admitting that, Krishna, this process is not possible for me. Oh, I am a military man. I have a look after the administrative affairs. I have to look after the administrative affairs. So how can I concentrate my mind in that way which you have prescribed? So it is not possible for me. He flatly denied. Okay. Text 34. Chanchalam himana Krishna pramadi balavadridam tasyaham nigraham manye vayor iva sudushkaram. The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate and very strong. O Krishna, and to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind. So this is a good verse for us to know about the nature of the mind. So Krishna Srila Prabhupada translates it, that Pramati, he says that agitating, Bhalavat, strong, turbulent, and he says Dridam means obstinate and very strong. So these are the three natures of the mind that is being explained. And so it's very difficult to control it. Here immediately Srila Prabhupada is giving a reference from the Katha Upanishad about the what is the position of the mind in this subtle and gross body. The individual is the passenger in the car of the material body, and intelligence is the driver, mind is the driving instrument, and the senses are the horses. The self is thus the enjoyer or sufferer in the association of the mind and senses. So it is understood by great thinkers. So one has to clearly understand what is this mind. So the passenger, he is just sitting, the driver, he holds the reins. So that is compared to the mind. So then all the senses are compared to the horses, so one has to mind has to control the senses. So remember these horses, if you don't properly control them, what the disaster will happen. Each and every horse, if it runs in different directions, then it will be a great difficulty for the person sitting inside the chariot. So one has to control the mind. So that is what is being discussed here. Okay. Now Krishna is pointing out that what about the intelligence? Intelligence can control the mind, right? So Krishna is pointing out, intelligence is supposed to direct the mind, but the mind is so strong and obstinate that it often overcomes even one's own intelligence, as an acute infection may surpass the efficacy of medicine. So that we know. There's a very good analogy Prabhupada gave here, that sometimes we keep taking some particular medicine and already if you go to the medical shop, this medicine anymore, it doesn't work anymore. The virus has become prone to that. So they come up with some other medicine. So similarly, Prabhupada is pointing out here that the infection is very acute. In acute state, the medicine will not work. So when the mind is, you have such an untrained mind, so any good advice, anything, nothing, it will just totally, it will not even go. It will just be rejected, totally rejected. So Arjuna, Srila Prabhupada is pointing out that how the mind can overpower the intelligence. So here, Srila Prabhupada is further pointing out that Arjuna, a person of such a caliber, he himself is struggling. He says that one cannot capture, Prabhupada says, and what can we say of modern man? A simile used here is appropriate. One cannot capture the blowing wind, and it is even more difficult to capture the turbulent mind. So difficult to capture the turbulent mind. So you see how many times we can see in this, just in the last 3-4 chapters, Srila Prabhupada emphasizing the power of the Bhakti Yoga. You can see this verse is being repeated again and again because that is the essence of Krishna consciousness. Savai mana Krishna padara vindayor. So for the mind to be controlled, for the mind to be subdued, there is no better process than engagement in pure devotion service, engaging all the senses in Krishna's service. And here Srila Prabhupada is also pointing out the very powerful process that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given, the easiest process of deliverance, chanting the holy names of Krishna. So with that Srila Prabhupada is concluding this purport. So we have to understand that we have to acknowledge that the mind is very crazy. So that's why whenever people say that just be free, be free of don't restrain yourself. So that's why you see sometimes some relatives will come and advise, too much you are, people are too much restricting yourself. Just be free, just see, I'm happy because I'm not stressed out. You people are too much stressed out. You say, sometimes I see relatives, sometimes say, this fellow says, I have to finish my rounds. Now I have to go and do service in the temple. And I say that, why this tension? Just be relaxed. And then you see, when you're relaxed, what happens? So it's an art to be understood, how to engage ourselves happily in Krishna consciousness. So that is possible when we really give our senses and the mind in Krishna's service. Then automatically, the senses and the mind becomes happy. It's subdued. Okay, let's go to the next verse. Text 35. Krishna here now gives a solution. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Asanshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena tu Kaunteya Vairagyena cha Gruhyate. Lord Sri Krishna said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. So here Krishna gives a two-folded solution. He says that yes, it is possible. I acknowledge, Arjuna, that it is difficult to control the mind, it is faster than the wind, but by practice and by detachment one can control the mind. So Prabhupada goes on to explain that how it is difficult to take up this eightfold yoga system. So for us, in this verse, when it says practice and detachment, how it can be applied in Krishna consciousness. So we need to practice the process of Krishna consciousness with enthusiasm, patience and determination, and also we should also simultaneously by developing attachment to Krishna, we become detached from these material things. We have a positive process of Krishna consciousness here. By this positive process, we gradually, naturally become detached. And also we understand, we don't have to separately take steps to develop Vairagya, because Vairagya and knowledge are byproducts of devotional service. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitah Janayatyashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayat Ahetukam. So Srila Prabhupada points out here, the first and foremost of such devotional engagements is hearing about Krishna. So we should see in this particular purport, Prabhupada is so much giving stress of the Navavida Bhakti. What is the stress Prabhupada is giving here? Is giving stress to Shravanam. We should practice, we should make it a habit to come and hear regularly. We should read Srila Prabhupada books regularly. We should engage in the service regularly. Practice. Abhyasena, Krishna is pointing out. So, by practice then our mind will become purified. We are always offering praise. Prabhu, when the bhav comes, I will actually come and engage. When the bhav will come, when we will engage. So, we don't wait for that bhav. We train ourselves that our bhav is our bhav is, we have to engage in Sevon Mukha. Then all the feelings will naturally, it will arise. So that should be the attitude. And Prabhupada further says, Vairagya means detachment from matter and engagement of the mind in spirit. So that's the point. So we engage in the devotional service of the Lord, then we will be able to give up the detachment. So Prabhupada again refers to the Bhagavatam verse, Pareshanubhavo. So he says that this attachment is called Pareshanubhuti, spiritual satisfaction. So three things happens. When we engage in the Lord's service, three things happen. You know what is that? Tushti, Pushti and Shuddhapaya. Then one becomes, see the thing is that one becomes, hunger is, when one is hungry, when a hungry man gets a food, his hunger is relieved, he becomes satisfied and is nourished. Pushti means he is nourished. So these are the three things, the effects. Similarly, by engaging in devotional service, what happens to us, we naturally, without any special endeavor, we give up our lower taste and we become cured. We become attached to Lord Krishna, His service and His devotees. So Prabhupada gives a conclusion in this purport. It is something like curing a disease by expert treatment and appropriate diet. Hearing of the transcendental activities of Lord Krishna is therefore expert treatment for the mad mind. And eating the foodstuff offered to Krishna is the appropriate diet for the suffering patient. So this is the formula Prabhupada is giving. So by the formula that Srila Prabhupada gave here to control the mad mind, so honor always Krishna Prasadam, chant the names of Krishna, engage in his service. In this way we'll make progress. So here just we'll see a short commentary by Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. He is pointing out, since you defeated many great warriors in the battle, Mahabaho, so he's calling him Mahabaho, that's why he's calling him Mahabaho, and even defeated Lord Shiva, can you not defeat the mind? Like this Krishna is pointing out. If you are able to defeat the soldier called the mind by the weapon of the great force of yoga, then you can be called mighty armed. O Kaunteya, you should not fear, as you are the son of my aunt Kunti, it is proper that I help you. So again another Krishna is giving assurance here. Okay, you are saying that mind is difficult to control, don't worry, I am there, I will help you. But really it would have been called Mahabaho if you would have controlled the mind. So we can learn one other lesson from this, that Krishna is ready to help us. You see, Krishna is ready to help us, provided we also take some steps to please Him. The Lord is ready to help us. This is a lesson that we need to learn, that if we are engaged in this process of Abhyasa and Vairagya, Krishna is giving this, Krishna is right in front to help us. See, one of the prayers offered by Rukmini, after that whole conversation, Krishna will tease Rukmini. He will say that maybe I am not your appropriate husband. You should have married someone else. And after all those conversations, you can see some of the prayers offered by Rukmini. In one prayer, it's an amazing prayer. She says that, my dear Lord, you are so kind. When the devotees are struggling in this material world, they are actually taking great steps to serve you. And in the struggle against Maya, Prabhupada also says, material world, what is this? What is Krishna consciousness? One definition Srila Prabhupada gives as waging war against Maya. And she says in the prayer that you are upfront in supporting the devotee when he is fighting against Maya. The Lord is there in the front, like a commander, he is there to help. So similarly, Krishna is saying here that I will help you in your struggle with your mind. And so he is suggesting that Abhyasa and Vairagya. Okay, there are a few more points, but there is no time. Okay, I'll just 2 minutes. For one who's, okay, I'll go to the next verse because this is one theme, I'll just finish this. Asamyatatmana yogo dushprapaiti me matihim vashyatmana tu yatata shakyo vaptum upayatah. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work. But he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. That is my opinion. So Krishna again concludes in the series of verses. He says that, you see, you have to understand, for you to make progress in spiritual realization, success is assured only when the mind is controlled. Mind has to be kept under your control. And that is my opinion. That is the success one derives. Krishna is pointing out. And Srila Prabhupada is again in the purport, he is making a point that it is very difficult. In the name of yoga, you in the name of trying to control senses on one hand, you try to engage the senses also in sense gratification. It is like igniting the fire and pouring water. Prabhupada gives an analogy. So Srila Prabhupada says that one can control the mind, one can control the senses. The best possible way is to engage in Krishna consciousness. Same theme Prabhupada is pointing out. A Krishna conscious person easily achieves the result of yoga practice without separate endeavor, but a yoga practitioner cannot achieve success without being Krishna conscious. So by being Krishna conscious, one can control the mind, and by practice. What is the practice? We have to practice. Kayena manasa. Kayena. There is another interesting verse in the Bhagavatam where King Nimi is actually getting hearing from the Navayogendras. So they are pointing out that one has to practice to engage the body, mind, words, everything in Krishna's service, and by this practice gradually one will come to the highest stage. So that is what we are in the process of sadhana bhakti. By the process of sadhana bhakti, what are we? We are molding our mind, molding our senses to become favorable to engage in Krishna's service. So by this favorable process of Krishna consciousness, we will come to the stage of, as in this section you can see in the Bhagavatam, it says Unmada, that famous verse is there, where a devotee, by having full faith in this process of Krishna consciousness, he experiences great transformations. He is dancing in the street, he is rolling on the ground. One will go to the great stages of ecstasy simply by sticking to the process of Shravanam and Kirtanam under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. So the practice has to be made. So in that section it says Kayena vacha manasaindriyaiva buddhyatmanava nushruta swabhava karoti yatsad sakalam parasmain narayanaeti samarpayat. So it is explained that one should Kayena with the body, Kayena vacha with the words, Manasa with the mind, then Indriya with the senses. With all these things we try to engage it in Krishna's service, and we offer it to the Supreme Lord, and that is devotional service. When we engage in devotional service, then we will be able to control the mind. So we will stop here, and tomorrow we will deal with the rest of the verses which speaks about Arjuna immediately raising further questions of a yogi who is not successful. What will happen to his destination? So for those who have some questions, those who are here, you could just meet me after the class, and for those others who are online, you can send your questions to the group and we will answer those questions. Thank you very much. Bhagavad Gita as it is ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.